Hey guys, what is up? Tominator here. So I know I'm a little late to the party because this competition, the 2018 California Pro, happened last weekend, and since then we just had the Toronto Pro yesterday. So apologies for being a little bit behind the ball, but I'll catch up eventually. I hope there's no more shows coming up next weekend because this is getting to be too much, man. Like, let's take a little break, okay? That'd be great. Anyway, I'm here to talk about this today. It's probably not going to be that long of a video because I feel like it's a pretty straightforward placing that they had here in this competition. So Nathan DeAsha on the left ended up winning. Sasson Haradi, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but that guy on the right was second. And Raphael Brando in the middle was third. And I think that that's completely justified. I think it makes total sense. It wasn't surprising to me in the slightest. And yeah, we're going to take a look at some of these poses, and I'll kind of explain why I think that is. So I've got footage from the prejudging, which is this, and then I also have some footage from the final so we can compare and talk about both rounds. All right, so let's jump into it. So yeah, admittedly, this it's a little blurry, but this was the best I could find. So it'll have to do. I think that it does fine enough. I think it's enough for us to tell what's going on here and to make sense of these outcomes. So in the front double, clear win for Nathan DeAsha. The only flaw that I see is his high lats. His lats could be a little bit lower because his torso looks a little elongated. He's got that Dennis Wolf effect there going on. But other than that, not really much you can pick apart. I think his legs are phenomenal. They're large, they have good sweep and shape, and they're fully separated from like hip to knee. So really good stuff. His arms are huge, great biceps, triceps, and the forearms. His shoulders and pecs look outstanding. Yeah, it's really just the high lats, and I guess the calves are kind of mediocre. They leave a little bit to be desired, but you could say the same about almost anybody at the Olympia level even, so it's not really a big deal. So Sasson Haradi, in this pose, I think he looks good, but a couple of things that I can kind of notice are that his arms look a little short, and that's no flaw of his. It's pure genetics, right? But I think it kind of throws off his proportions a little bit, in my eyes anyway. And I think, having shorter limbs like that, it limits how much mass you can pack on there. So I think he's doing well with what he's got. And I think his arms do look really good in certain poses, like the side tricep, which we'll see. But in this one, it's just a little bit coming up short compared to Nathan, I think. But he's pretty close. And size-wise through the rest of his body, very competitive. Through the quads, pretty much right there with DeAsha. And calves might even be a little bit better than DeAsha's. So, even the lats they insert a little bit lower. He's kind of got better insertions there. But his waist is wider. Not so noticeable in this pose right here, but in other poses it will become more apparent. I think what he's doing here, see how he's sucking in his stomach? I think that that's a good call. Anybody with a larger, thicker waistline should do the pose in this manner because it's going to minimize your waist and it's going to maximize your chest, your lats, your rib cage, your whole upper body is going to look bigger, and it's just going to improve your overall aesthetics and stuff. So really good call. I know that, someone like Jay Cutler did this back in the day too. Jay always had a really wide, blocky waist, but he looked good in the front double bicep because he sucked it in very well, just like this guy's doing. So anyway, Raphael Brando, he's also hitting it like that. This is a guy who could probably afford to crunch down on his abs because his waistline is so tight still. It's really good. You got to commend him for that. And he's very well conditioned. Again, just like DeAsha, separation in those thighs from hip to knee. Really like to see that. It's a very rare sight in professional bodybuilding these days when they have fully separated quads like this. So part of it too, guys, is the lighting, of course. The lighting was better here than it was at the New York Pro. But when it comes to DeAsha anyway, he definitely came in with a higher level of conditioning. He said he only dropped about 4 or 5 pounds between those two shows. But he doesn't really look too much smaller, but he's way more diced. So I think it's a much better look for him this time around compared to the New York Pro. Anyway, in the front lat spread, again, I would go with DeAsha on this. I think that he really fills it out nicely. He's got a tremendous X-frame, really nice and wide through the delts and the lats, and the good sweep through the quads. I think it's a pretty clear win for him in this pose as well. And, not to take away from those two guys on the outsides, because I think they both look good. I think that this whole top three looked really outstanding. And I think that they all brought great conditioning. They all had pretty good proportions and shape and balance and everything. So I think that this was a pretty good show, all in all. In the side chest, you know what? I actually think that Sasson here probably takes this one. I think that he looks bigger than DeAsha now. DeAsha, let's see. Does DeAsha open up a little more? Does he turn a little more? A little, but even still, I think that Sasson looks really good from the side. Like, I think he looks outstanding in the side tricep as well. He just has crazy thickness. Look at his hamstring sweep. I think it's better than DeAsha's and Brandau's. His arms and shoulders look huge from this angle. So it's between him and DeAsha for sure, because I think depending on the way that they hit this, right? Like, if we just back it up for a second, when he turns a little bit more to face the camera, Haredi, on the right, I think that he beats DeAsha, or at least it's very, very close. You could make a case for either of them, but I like this guy's lower body more. So I'd probably go with him. But when he closes off a little bit and DeAsha opens up, I think that now the edge goes to DeAsha, perhaps. So it's very close. It all depends on the exact angle that they're hitting the pose. But what's clear to me is that Brandau he just doesn't have the raw size yet to hang with these two. I think that this guy, I'm not sure how old he is, but he's a relative newcomer as far as I'm aware. I haven't heard of him before this year. But I would assume that he's young, and if he could pack on another 10 or 20 pounds and maintain his shape and symmetry and his conditioning and all that, then this guy's going to be a real threat to even the top 10 at the Olympia level, all right? Like, he's got tremendous potential. But here in prejudging, he was definitely a little flat, okay? Because it really, well, I'll talk about it in a moment when we see it in the finals. But he just doesn't have the size here to hang with these guys. So that's why he was third. In the back double, we can see it again. I mean, DeAsha and Haredi are kind of on a different level when it comes to the mass and the thickness through the back. They're all very dialed in. Probably Sasson on the right there. He's a little bit not quite as tight through the glutes, but other than that, like, I think his conditioning's pretty spot on. And can we get one with DeAsha? DeAsha always kind of, he's hit and miss on this pose, right? Like, the way he hits it sometimes looks a little bit off. You can see here the way he's displaying himself, it almost throws off his symmetry in a sense, because he's just not hitting the pose 100%. He just needs to tweak it a little bit. Like, you can see that his right arm there is a little bit lower than the left. Like, the angle's a little off the way he's hitting this pose. So he just needs to work on that, I think, because he can look outstanding when he nails the pose 100%. But based on this, I would probably still give it to him, because I think that thickness-wise, Haredi's very close, but DeAsha's got the definite advantage in the width. And, he's a little bit tighter through the glutes and hamstrings, I'd say. So, I would give it to DeAsha still, but it's close. Brando over there on the left looks tremendous. There's the only knock on him is the size, because, conditioning, the shape, and everything is there. He's got lots of detail in the back. Brando actually reminds me a little bit of Milos Sarcev, like a young Milos Sarcev. If you go back to the early 90s, look at Milos, look at his physique, look at his aesthetics. He was highly aesthetic back then, and this guy reminds me a lot of him. So just my 2 cents. I'm not sure if anybody else has noticed that or feels the same way, but I haven't heard anybody mention that comparison. In the rear lat spread. Ooh, okay. Sasson looks pretty good, man. He looks pretty good. DeAsha, we're not seeing it head on. Him and Brando are a little bit angled off, so it's kind of hurting their presentation here just from this camera angle. I don't know. It's tough to call. Whereas Sasson there is facing kind of dead on, so it's making him look a little bit better. Tough to call. We'll see if we get a better look in the finals round. The side tricep, this is what I'm talking about with Sasson. Look at his arm there. I mean, okay, sorry about the crappy quality. You can't make out the definition properly, but you can see the size, right? You can see the shape. Very reminiscent of Dorian Yates in the side tricep, the way his arms suddenly look just massive in this pose now. Whereas we know, as was the case with Dorian Yates, neither one of these guys has the biggest arms per se, but I'm not saying that they had small arms, but they didn't have like Rolly Winkler level mass in those guns, right? But suddenly when they hit this pose, it looks like they do. So I think that this guy's got amazing thickness and overall just raw power in these side poses. So I would probably go with him in the side tricep. Whereas the Asha, in contrast, looks very mediocre for him. This is a middle of the road type of pose for him. You wouldn't really say it's a weak pose or a bad pose for the guy, but it's not one of his best, that's for sure. I think it leaves a lot to be desired. Like, we know that Dash's arms are bigger than Sassen's, right? We saw that in the front double. I think that if you were to measure them, they'd probably come out on top, but they don't look like it there. All right, so we missed the ab and thigh and the most muscular. I don't know why the footage cuts off, but that's okay. We'll catch it here in the finals. So in this one, they brought out Josh Wade, and he ended up taking 4th. And if you watched one of my last videos in the New York Pro, in which this guy also competed, you'll know that I don't really favor this kind of physique. I don't really like this guy's look. And sorry, that's nothing personal against him, because I don't know anything about this dude. I pretty much had just heard of him in the last show. So nothing personal against the guy. I'm just saying, for me subjectively, I don't like this kind of look because it's not aesthetic. It's not something that I would aspire to ever look like. I just think his proportions are off, and it really starts with the arms. The arms are just not up to par with the rest of his body size-wise. They're really underdeveloped. I have to say it, man. They're way too small for those lats and those legs. So he's out of proportion right there. And the waistline is the second thing. It's way too wide and blocky. And even though he's got good conditioning and everything, it's overall, I don't think it's a very appealing look, and I don't think physiques like this should be rewarded at this level. So Lionel Bayeki took 5th, and I know Lionel Bayeki wasn't even nearly as conditioned as this guy, but at a certain point, you got to evaluate, what are you going to reward? Are we going to reward the most shredded guys who don't, no one would really want to look like, honestly? Or are we going to go with the guys who are just more genetically blessed and have the more appealing physique? Like, I think at a certain point, you have to go with the latter, This is the problem with focusing too much on mass and conditioning, is you end up with physiques that nobody would, in their right mind, want to have. And that's bad for the sport of bodybuilding, I think. Yes, we should reward the guys who do the work to come in really dialed in and, just nail it, but not at the expense of just, overall aesthetics. You know what I'm saying? Like, at a certain point, you go too far with this mass and conditioning thing. So anyway, that's just my opinion. You guys know me. You know my stance on this if you've been around my channel for a while, so I'm not going to go into it in any more detail here. But yeah, rant over. Josh Wade did bring the conditioning, but I don't really like that type of physique. So in the front double, I think Nathan takes it. So one thing has to be said, though. Let me just back it up here. We'll go back into this pose. Because Brando now, what the hell, man? He looks so much bigger. He really filled out. Like, in the prejudging, it looked like he was giving up at least 20 pounds to Asha and Sassen. And now he's almost hanging there, right there with him size-wise. So I don't know how the hell he did that. I'm not sure if this is just a trick of the lighting or if he's standing a little closer to the camera maybe on the stage. I don't know, man, but whatever it is, he looks so much more favorable now in this comparison to my eyes. I think that he's really closed the gap in the size, and he's still got great conditioning. So I think this is a much improved Raphael Brando, and I think he's way more competitive now. Interestingly enough, if you look at the scorecards, he was almost unanimously in 3rd. He only managed to steal a single vote from Sassen, who was basically running away in 2nd place. It wasn't that close between those two, believe it or not. And ironically enough, it was in the prejudging. Like, I don't know how a judge voted for Raphael Brando in the prejudging in 2nd place, but not in the finals. It should have been, to my eyes, this is a much better look for him overall. Like, I don't see how he lost any conditioning, and he's fuller. So why would he fare worse here in the finals? Again, a minor nitpick with the judging outcome, but I don't understand it personally. I get the final outcome, and I agree with that. I think that he should have probably been 3rd, but whatever. Anyway. Front lat spread, still to Asha. He's still filling it out really well. I think Brando might just be standing in the very best spot on the stage. We're seeing the light pop off his body more. It's giving it more pop, more depth. We're seeing deeper cuts as a result. Now, to be fair, it could just be he is a little bit more dialed in than Asha here, because Asha's, for instance, in the quads, his separation there doesn't look quite as sharp. as Raphael Brando's now, and through the entire upper body as well. So it's either lighting or Raphael is just a little bit more dialed in than him. I don't know. But either way, Daash's still got just a little bit too much size for Brando to catch up. And Assassin there on the right looks really good too. All these guys had really good quads, I gotta say. It's very rare, as I mentioned already, to see full deep separation like that. Yeah, side chest, probably to Asha there. Yeah, I don't want to drag on the video too long, so we're just gonna kind of go through some of these quicker now. In the back double, look at Brando now, man. He's measuring up very well to Daasha now. Like, this is what I'm talking about. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened, but he looks amazing now. He looks way bigger to me, and he's still got great condition. Still got that very nice tight waistline. He looks, and him and Daasha look so similar in this pose now. I mean, Daasha's got a little more thickness, a little bit more size downstairs. We can see that, but I mean, it's very close. Like, they both look very similar, and I actually think Brando is hitting the pose better. You know, Daasha might be kind of jockeying for position a little bit. To be fair to him, that might be why he looks a little funny in this. But we saw in the prejudging, like, he just looks a little iffy in this pose. Yeah. Josh Wade looks good there, I gotta say. You can see he's really dialed in. And I like the way he hits this side tricep, too. I haven't really seen anyone hit it quite like that before. It's almost like how Dorian used to hit it with the front, with the near leg in front like that more, but not quite. And I think it's a good look because he's keeping his midsection tight too. Daasha again, I think that he looks good but not great in this one. Raphael Brando, I think, actually looks better than him, and Assassin looks good too. So I don't know. I wouldn't give that one to Daasha. The ab and thigh, though, believe it or not, I think I might. Even though Brando's, like, you would think Brando would win this, but I think Daasha's actually more streamlined through the waist here. Like, see, Brando's got some slight lumpiness in the obliques. If we just go back here, I mean, this is really nitpicking. I think he's got a great midsection for a top pro today because most of these guys are disastrous, but you can see it a little bit in the obliques there, right here, right? Whereas Daasha, nothing. Just perfectly streamlined. You gotta love it. Either one, or either way, they both look great. Now, Assassin and Wade, you can tell they've got wider waists. It's just mostly genetic. That's just how they're built. But you know, this is a game of genetics bodybuilding, so you can only work with what you got, right? So, and the guys with the better genetics, that's what really separates the champions from the next level guys. So, in the most muscular, we'll see. I don't see anyone beating Daasha in this, and Raphael Brando looks good though, man. He looks good, but I'd still go with Daasha. Yeah. So that's my take on the California Pro. I think it was a very understandable outcome. I think that they got it right. I don't think there's too much controversy here at all. The one thing I will say about Daasha, man, don't get ahead of yourself, kid, because I think this guy just likes to trash talk. I've seen him in the past doing so, taking jabs at guys and stuff. But when you're saying, you know, watch out, Phil, I'm coming for you at the Olympia, last time I checked, there's like, you know, 6 other dudes in front of you got to go through first. So one step at a time, bro. Like, these are small shows. You weren't competing against anybody that you shouldn't have beaten, okay? Let me say that again. You weren't competing against anybody that you shouldn't have beaten. You were the top-rated bodybuilder coming into both these shows, the New York Pro and the Cali Pro. So you're the expected winner, man. Like, you didn't do anything other than do exactly what you should have done. So, you know, you got your work cut out for you still against guys like Rolly and Dexter and Ramy and Bonac, let alone Phil Heath. So, but, you know, if you bring this kind of a package, this level of conditioning and tightness to the Olympia, you know, I could definitely see him cracking into the top 5 or 6. But it's going to be hard to move up because that top 6 is very competitive. You know, the only real asterisk right now is Sean Roden because he's coming out that injury and he had a little bit of a down year last year, so maybe he could slip out. But I don't know about the rest of them, man. I think that it's going to be very hard to break into that group. So anyway, guys, that's all for me on this one. Thank you for watching. My next video, I'm going to be talking about the Toronto Pro, all right? So hopefully I'll get that out sometime this week. And yeah, until then, I'm the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.